Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome back to the Onyx Tavern Vlog series on Russia Sentai ToQger. I'm your host, Rick the Barkeep, and today let's talk about station number 46, The Final Destination. And of course, lucky for us, there are no gruesome murders in this, unless you count Glitter, but that was last episode and off screen, so lucky for us. Well, surprise, surprise, Wright's plan of fighting the Emperor and his entire army of darkness by himself failed miserably. Yes. It really talks to the stupidity of Wright as a character and whatever he's going through right now. I mean, you can argue that he's not thinking straight, that he's depressed, he's emo, he's volatile, whatever the case is, but it does not cover up the fact that what he did was incredibly stupid by getting rid of four trained soldiers, if you will, to just go in by himself. And he didn't even wait for Akira to show up. I mean, Akira has to come in and help him, and then they have to go ahead and escape because Wright just can't handle it on his own. So, yeah, Wright was stupid, selfish, everything I said in the previous episode, and nothing about that has changed. And as we said, he's in the wrong here. Now, I'm going to get to what's going on with the other ToQger, but let's continue on what's happening with Wright, because they have to retreat. He and Akira say, hey, we have to go ahead and do this. So, let's go in the battle. Let's take my train. Let's take your train. Let's not bother about the other trains, and let's go in together and let's go fight these guys by ourselves. Me corrupted with the darkness and you with one Megazord to fight because we didn't think to bring the Hyper Terminal or the Diesel O or anything like that with us. And what ends up happening? Zet ends up creating a giant monster out of his castle terminal and expanding the darkness to where it's even taking back over Subaru Gahama. Yes, the entire place that he fought for is now being taken over by the darkness once again. So like I said, he's utterly failed here. Now, of course, as we see the episode, the B plot or the side story, whatever you want to call it, as I keep saying A story and B story. I know there's probably terminology for a lot of this stuff, but what is going on secondary to what's happening with Wright is what's happening with the ToQger back in their hometown, and there's a lot I want to get into regarding that, but just to follow out with Wright here, I mean, it's expected, and nothing really interesting happens from it. Yeah, he finds out that Glitter was murdered, but what exactly was he expecting with the plan she came up with? That she'd be in enemy territory and then she'd come out okay without any type of protection. Remember, the only reason she's actually been able to survive at this point is because of the protection from Schwartz and various long shots, particularly her being able to resurface from within inside of Zet. So, again, I don't know why he's particularly surprised about that. But let's talk about what the other ToQger are doing in their hometown. First of all, I still don't understand what the darkness is and what its rules are. Because, alright, so a town is taken over by the darkness, the entire inhabitants of the town are frozen, the town either phases out or is sent to another dimension or whatever to where it doesn't exist, and people never recall that it existed. Again, if we put this into American thing, it's like, say Los Angeles becomes a shadow town and all of LA disappears, and somehow we've made it to 2015 without, Hollywood or the USC or UCLA. The whole world seems to be just fine because we happen to forget the most important things ever. I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it here. But let's buy that premise. So, Subaru Gahama has been brought out of the darkness, and they resume their lives unaware that anything has happened. Now, I'm going to assume that the rest of the world now remembers it, and they don't remember, of course, being frozen. Except for the fact, as it is stated in this episode by Hikari, and I trust Hikari in all things, that today is the last day of the Stargazing Festival. Now, if we go by the timeline of the series, this episode aired February 8th of 2015, whereas the original episode aired sometime in February. I don't have the exact date pulled up here. Which means that they have been frozen for an entire year And they just now came out at the exact time that would coincide with the end of the festival. Gee, that seemed to work out well, didn't it? Or it could be that they are frozen and they are experiencing time on their own, basically. Again, a year has passed, but they don't realize the year's passed and they are still picking up from the day they left off. Now, let's assume that that's more likely because honestly, air dates are arbitrary. There are times you can plan for it, like they did with Ninja when they did the 40th anniversary special, which unfortunately got knocked back a week due to terrorist activity. Nevertheless, I'm going to count air dates in this capacity as arbitrary. So let's assume that they have not been frozen for an entire year, which is what the episode is really trying to go ahead and say, is that it really hasn't been a year to the date, okay? Because to say otherwise is just ludicrous that they were able to free their town 365 days exactly after the last time they were there, because that doesn't make a lot of sense. So what that means is, let's say they all think it's February 1st. Okay, that the entire town was frozen on February 1st, they come out of it, and now, of course, the next day has come, it's February 2nd. Well, to the rest of the world, we just got done with January, right? So what are you guys doing? Why is the time different here? Or what if it's not even a day? What if it's actually several months? They still think it's February, but it's September to the rest of the world. Now that they've been reintegrated into the rest of existence, shouldn't they have signs showing that something's off here, that we've been gone for a significant amount of time? I mean, these people get internet, they get mail, they get television, right? They get all these different things. So shouldn't they know that there's been a time difference? That's not brought up or addressed. And again, we have to question about the time difference simply because Hikari says it's the last day of the Stargazing Festival, and most festivals in Japan last a couple of days, a week at most. Unless you're trying to tell me that the Stargazing Festival lasts the entire year, then it's not really a festival as it is a daily routine, is it? So again, they can't even get their entire logic right. Here's another thing. So when the ToQger, the other four go to their secret base, which again is the tree, Mio has some candy for all of them, and she packs 5 pieces of candy. Now, the implication is not that, oh, I had extra candy in my pockets, I grabbed some and so I have. No, I specifically brought 1 piece of candy for each person here, and I have a 5th one. Why would I have a 5th one if there was no 5th person? And this sends her into this question, like, what's going on? What's going on? And stuff like that. Now, they eventually find out about being ToQger and all that kind of stuff because of something Wagon did. So let me go on this point real quick before we get back to the candy. Wagon did not agree with the dumbassery that was going on between the president, conductor, and Ticket and the others. She's just like, we gotta do something here in case something bad happens, because something bad did happen. So she had Akira go ahead and put up photos of them as ToQger in the secret base, with the intent that, well, maybe if they see the photos of themselves, they will remember, gain their memories, and then somehow find the rainbow line. That was the plan, apparently. Even if they had to make their own Khmer passes and use the power of imagination to, make Khmer passes and make the train show up. So that's kind of stupid in of itself. But as the episode is indicating here, is that even though Wright is on the rainbow line, and it said that people will not remember him because he's on the rainbow line, there is evidence to the contrary. So, as I said with the aforementioned candy, but then also his mother's trying to remember him. His mother has 2 other children, and apparently no father, which is kind of odd, but whatever. That's a different discussion for a different time. Actually, it's a discussion I already covered. But she's like, I'm trying to remember. Isn't there something else I'm forgetting? And then I can see that's a natural way of doing it. It's kind of like, I remember something, but I can't remember what it was. Was I supposed to see someone today? I was supposed to do my taxes? What was it? I can't remember. And that seems a natural way of doing it. But the fact that Mio has 5 pieces of candy indicates that there is physical evidence left behind of Wright's existence. Now, why is that a problem? Because Wright's own mother cannot remember his existence, Yet Mio has one extra piece of candy just for him. Let me illustrate how stupid that is. Because again, we have no rules other than, oh, won't remember while he's on the rainbow line. Yet physical evidence still remains. We have to remember that his mother gave birth to him, and whether it was, vaginally or C-section or whatever, I'm sure she's going to go ahead and remember a big chunk of her life like that. I mean, uh, George may have forgotten Marty for the week he was there in 1955 and not remember that that's his own son 30 years later. That I can get behind. But the fact that she, gave birth to this kid and doesn't remember him at all, I'm calling BS on that. Second, he has brothers and sisters. They have a house. I'm assuming he has a room, whether he shares it with his brother or not. The whole fact that you have a house like that, or apartment, wherever they're living in, and you have 3 children, and you either have too big a house, too small a house. The point is that his existence would translate to physical evidence being a house, whether that was the selection of house that they have, or the fact that he has toys there. There are pictures and stuff like that. Again, the indication is reality is changed, but they're not doing a good enough job to explain that, because again, if he was truly absent, completely gone from existence, Mio would not have that 5th piece of candy. Now, of course, you can argue that subconsciously that she knew to get 5 pieces of candy because of Wright, but again, Wright was the one who came up with the clubhouse idea in the first place, so if he did not exist, then the physical evidence he left behind, which is the clubhouse itself, should not be there either. I mean, I know this is a little hard to follow, but I'm trying to do a job here to explain this, because the episode cares not to explain it. They don't give a damn about any of this. They're trying to say nobody remembers him and that's it, but we need a way so they could have the idea for them to start remembering about him by having the candy in there. Now again, if they completely forgot about the candy and just went by the pictures, then that would make a little bit more sense. But again, how is it that they can remember him from pictures, but his mother can't remember him from his entire existence? That's the kind of crap I'm talking about. And again, it's really easy for them to actually remember, right? All they need is a picture, and somehow, oh, that is us, and as adults 10 years from now. Of course I recognize myself. I mean, if I was that age, I would not recognize myself. I don't know who would recognize themselves at that point. And then suddenly this image of Wright as a child shows up, and then as an adult, and then as Tokyo Ichigo. I'm sorry, are we using magic here? Because that is not in their minds. That has to be something else that's coming out. And don't say it's the power of imagination, because if it was, we'd have an explanation for it. But no, out of nowhere, this image comes in. Okay, so long story short, too late. They make commuter passes, somehow the rainbow line comes to them, and they decide to go ahead and charge in to save Wright. Which, again, they didn't need to go ahead and do, because he shouldn't have done this in the first place, and they were dumb enough to give their rainbow passes anyway. I mean, this episode, there's nothing really to it, because we have the deviation of where the ToQger become children again, have to deal with it. And the thing is that Wright is all broken up about the fact that all his friends are gone, but it's only been about 20 minutes from where Wright is, exactly, because he dumped them off, got on the train, went fight the Emperor, got defeated, came back, and then he's all upset. Again, it's only been about 20-30 minutes, probably, within the universe, and then suddenly, within that half an hour, all ToQger remember who they are and come back in the bout. It was ultimately pointless. It is wasting our time. Station 46 is nothing but a waste of time. What happens? Wright goes in, tries to battle Zet, gets defeated, tries to go back in again. In the previous episode, we get the ToQger turn to children, only to turn into children before the end of the episode and charge right back in. What was the point of this episode? What was it trying to tell us? What was it setting up? Yeah, that Wright misses his friends. Well, duh. I think we all knew that from the beginning. So what's the whole again, what is this episode trying to go ahead and do? It's not the final episode. It's not building to anything. I mean, frankly, if we took the last episode and just had them all charging at the end, it would probably be the same result because again, nothing happens in this episode. Nothing that makes sense anyway, nothing that's substantial, nothing that means anything to any of the characters. I could have told you Wright would have been upset that Glitter died or that he missed his friends and everything, but oh boy. Oh boy. This does not bode well. I mean, the next episode is the terminal station, or the final one is terminal station, the shining ones, or the final terminal, whatever it is. Figure out from your own Japanese translation. And right now, we don't have that build up. Okay, yes, the castle terminal turned to a giant monster. How is that any different from any other time? Yes, Zet is covering the land in darkness. How is that really different? We're not escalating the stakes. We're not making things worse. We're not making it more interesting. Um, Again, we're pretty much where we were in the previous episode. Nothing substantial, I think, has happened that could not have been done at the end of Station 45. We had this deviation where Wright has to fight by himself and realizes he can't do it by himself, and then the ToQger go back to town for about less than an hour, and then they suddenly become adults again and go right back into the battle. Oh yeah, and I'm sure changing between adult and child body in the span of an hour is not harmful physically at all. Then again, they did in the Kyoryuger crossover, but then what do I know about physiology? I mean, I'm not a writer for ToQger. Anyway, so very disappointed. You know, final episodes usually have the ability to final episodes are pretty good in Super Sentai. I can't say there's a final that I did not like. Then again, that streak could be broken with ToQger. So, all right, next time we will come to the shiny ones, and we will be finished with the regular series ToQger, and then we have a bonus after that. But I will leave you hanging unless you can figure it out on your own already, which you probably should. Uh, so until then, thank you guys for listening. Have a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.